This is the Tarpa convoy in July 17. They were inspected by Her Majesty, the Queen Mary. I have the original photograph of this in the book. There's another copy, and they're all named, and one name is crucial. And the beauty of our research is that you never know what you're going to find. I've had this photograph for years. When I open this, it's all named, so I know who all they are now. And one name in particular is who's looking at the dog. We'll come to her shortly. One of the medal groups in my collection is again, when I buy the medals, it only has the name on it. It doesn't give the title or role that the individual has. But now, going to the British Red Cross records, I now know she was the superintendent of the convoy for a period of time. Motor ambulance convoy in France, Tarbes, and then she went to the sick bay in Rouen with the wax. So the documents at the British Red Cross are absolutely wonderful for me and people who collect this type of medal. There's the Queen inspecting the drivers. And this is that photograph again. It's a wonderful photograph. I've had it for years. The lady with the dog looking down, one of the only two that's looking down, so you can't quite see her, is a lady called Oliver Moody Cook. In January 16, Olive and her sister Phyllis joined the First Aid Nurse in Yeomanry as drivers in the Cali unit. For some reason, I have no idea why, in December of that year, they both left and became drivers, chauffeurs in the voluntary aid detachment. Olive was an artist and managed to capture life as the chauffeurs. And do have a look, some lithographs. She captured her experiences both at the time of war and after the war. In 1920, the Imperial War Museum's Women's Works Subcommittee acquired several of her drawings depicting the work of the chauffeurs, both in France and Italy. She actually served in Italy as well. Here is one of the Imperial War Museum portfolios of her work. One is a signed copy of Olive's work. They were published on the request of Olive as a souvenir album for all the VAD drivers. She returned to the battlefields after the war, captured the scarred landscape. She travelled widely after the war. And in 1923, she exhibited some of her artwork in South Africa. Returning briefly to England in 25, we then, with our research, Sue found this very sad story. Here she is. Actually, only picture. If you ever find a picture of Olive Moody Cook, please let me know, because this is the only picture we can find of her. There's nothing on the internet. For an incredibly well-known artist, anyway. English woman shot dead in a French hotel. She was found. One states that she was she hadn't been speaking. She was alone in a room, and she was found dead with a bullet in her heart. The other accounts is that she was found with a bullet in her head. I would suggest it was probably more that she was found dead so she's clearly taken her life with a bullet to the head, I think. She was returned back to England, apparently. Soon I can't find out where she's buried. And there's, for such a well-known individual for her art, there's very little. I can't find a photograph of her. My ambition is to do a little bit more work, but it's such a sad story. We were talking before the start of was it war-related? As she become consumed by what she saw? I don't know, but there's nothing about the reason behind why she took her life, but a sad end to her life. Someone's age 25, some say 35, so she's still a young lady. I have this in my collection. I will go through this very quickly. It's Miss Elwes notifying her that she'll be called up to France soon, and we'll be glad to report here in uniform for your final papers and instructions. Be prepared to leave for France on the 9th. We'll inform you by return post. And I only had this letter. That's all I'd got. And then I went on to the British Red Cross records, and there you see her name, age 23, her address, chauffeurs, the dates, And PTO, please turn over. And there, crucial bit of information, military medal, 23rd of July 18, and we'll come to her. She's been won a significant bravery award, which we'll look at in the next couple of minutes as we finish. So again, those records, the British Red Cross records, and if you've got any relative or any, they're a fantastic record providing really important information. In Ruth's album is the Christmas card of 1917, and it shows you that they have turtle soup for starters, roast turkey, Brussels sprouts and potatoes, jelly trifle and coffee. And I'd never heard of turtle soup, but apparently during the Lord Mayor's banquet, has anybody else heard of turtle soup? Well, I hadn't. I love this. It's only for the favoured few, yet turtle soup, the famous outstanding feature of the feast, can be easily and simply made even by the extract amateur cook. Just a cube of Freeman's real turtle extract and some boiling water to pour on it. Nothing else is required to produce turtle soup as delectable as which will grace the ultimate banquet. Is made from the choice meat of selected West Indian turtles. Tell your cook to get it from your grocer, and you can enjoy it tonight as a fine dish ever graced by the Guildhall table. Ideal food for invalids and convalescents. Apparently, turtle soup was a dish for special occasions. It contained actual turtle meat, and mock turtle soup was a far cheaper version, which used calf's or sheep's head to imitate the taste. And apparently, as you say, it was well known. I didn't know. Can anybody remember eating turtle soup? So when would it have gone out of fashion, sir? In the 50s. In the 50s. No, I've just arrived. But yeah, turtle soup. And again, you never know what you're going to find. And there, signed on the card, is Oliver Moody Cook's signature, the lady who took her own life. Well, we've almost finished. This is, I have a photograph of Dorothy Chalmers. I've had it for years. And the card provides some excellent information, 21-year-old. And as you see, she went in February 18, so almost towards, or they wouldn't have known then, but coming towards the end of the year, the war. And it provides which convoy she served on, the Trouville convoy and then the Le Tréport convoy in late July 18. The air raids, as we come to the close of the talk, the air raids were significant. The first air raids took place in May 17. Here's an example of one of the hospitals destroyed by Germans. This is on the coast. Jerry shells a Red Cross hospital in July 1917, 23 Red Cross nurses killed. The raid was carried out in two periods, and the convoy members were requested to convey the wounded from where the bombs dropped. They did sterling work during the bombing raids. 4 members of the convoy were awarded the military medal, which is a significant bravery award. And others were mentioned in dispatches. She writes, there's a wonderful photograph of the staff at Etaples, obviously the bomb-proof billets, because the raids were significant. And Ruth writes vividly about the raid. And I'm only just going to read a couple of lines. I got into bed, this is the 2nd of May 1918, I got into bed about 10 o'clock and was reading when I heard a very distant gun, the guns, reading more like hot weather thunder. 3 or 4 minutes later, de Berg, colleague, suggested putting the lights out as it seemed to be getting nearer, so we did. But B section, including the sub-commander, still had theirs on. We turned on again. I looked out the window but could see nothing. So I was just getting back into bed, then bang! There was a terrific explosion and the huts shook. Immediately guns started and the row was awful. We had the lights out in 2 seconds and we were all out in the passage a moment later where we stood in total darkness until 11:30 amid the bangs and crashes. And she goes on and it describes the whole night of the bombing. And she writes, whether she had to, but she writes meticulously about the raids, the dates of the raids, times, the casualties, the employment base, her 30 missing, 40 killed, 200 casualties, 35 bombs. Second Lifeguards Camp, Bullring, which is a famous training camp, 30 killed, 100 wounded, ammunition tent hit, 6 bombs. The camps and infantry-based depots, 5 bombs in the new sidings, a lot killed and injured, 12 killed. And she goes on, 53 killed. These were significant bombing raids during the 1918 and reported significantly in the papers how many of the staff and nurses were killed during these bombing raids. And again, research, family research, history, military research is wonderful. You never know what you're going to find. This is a photograph of one of the members, Evelyn Light. When I saw this, she's having clearly leisure time, having a little row in the lake at Camire, which is just near Etaples. And I thought, wow, because I have her medals. So to have a picture now of somebody's medals I've had for a long time was, you never know what you're going to find or research the following day, and it's most enjoyable. The last couple of slides, ladies and gentlemen. They obviously had their leisure time, walking, picking wildflowers, writing, drawing, painting, boating, as we've seen with Evelyn Light. And Evelyn, Josephine wrote religiously home to her mother and father, and she describes a great, great dance at the YMCA hut, and that the convoy members had been asked to attend. However, the VAD regulation directed by the commandant, Miss Thompson, she must have been a right old, stated that VADs were not permitted to dance in public, but made concession that the convoy members may dance, but only in their own huts, not the YMCA huts. So convoy members were required to attend the dance, secure a partner, and then trail him off through the mud to the convoy camp and dance in the convoy hut. But they made the most of it. The stoves were taken out for more room, a huge quantity of chalk put down on the floor, a piano was brought in. Where they got a piano from, I don't know, and a pianist and some drinks. Nobody knew anybody, so the men just came up and asked, may I have this dance? In the intervals, we walked out about the mud flap and drank port wine with soda. We had a jolly time. And a couple of photographs from the collection of clearly having, I love this photograph, a day on the beach with some of the French soldiers. I think he's a Belgian soldier next to the VAD, and some children and locals. And next, pretty much the last few slides. In January 1918, the First Aid Nursing Yeomanry set up a new convoy at Saint-Omer, and they drafted a number of the members from the Calais convoy, the Fanny Calais convoy. But they couldn't make the numbers up, so they asked the British Red Cross, the VADs, to make up the outstanding numbers. And it was known as the Saint-Omer convoy, and it was responsible for transporting wounded from hospitals in that area, inland. The town close to the front was constantly subjected to air raids from long-distance German shells. During the German offensive of 1918, that famous offensive, it was considered by, and this is interesting, it was 1918, which is 4 years into the war, the British military authorities considered that it was doubtful whether the women should be allowed to remain at Saint-Omer. The women were only allowed to remain after humble pleas were made by the drivers. Military authorities were going to move the women because it was too dangerous. But the women said, no, you're not. We are stopping, and they did. And we'll see they did sterling work there. I've got one of if you ever get a copy of this book by Joseph, called The Red Herrings, it's a lovely, it's an easy read, and it captures the life of a VAD during the war, late during the war, but certainly captures. This is one of the things that comes across when I've read their histories, their experiences. They had a good war, although they saw a lot of horrors. They had a good war, and she said it was the happiest year of my life and the most carefree of her life. Many didn't want to come home, and they actually carried on with the German army of occupation because they knew coming back home was likely to return to their, I suppose, boring Edwardian existence. I'm going to slip through that. And this is the group. She describes in the book the occasion. A number of the first aid nursery and yeomanry and some of the VADs, 4 VADs, were awarded the military medal. General Plummer, this is a photograph of them just before they were going off to the ceremony where they're going to be awarded the medals by General Plummer. Here he is with one of the first aid nursery and yeomanry, pinning the ribbons on them. Some had the military medal. A couple had the Croix de Guerre. And this is a citation. For gallantry and conspicuous duty when the ammunition dump had been set on fire by enemy bombs, and the only available ambulances for the removal of the wounded had been destroyed. These ladies arrived with their ambulances, and despite the danger arising from various explosions, succeeded in removing all the wounded. The conduct throughout was splendid. The military medal is a significant. It was awarded for acts of gallantry and devotion to duty under fire. That's a significant British gallantry medal that these women had just been awarded. And some got the French Croix de Guerre. And the last but one slide. Joseph Tennant recalls the news of the morning that the hostilities are ceased on the 11th of November. Someone started blowing the horn, and before long, every horn on the lines was honking. One of the ambulance cars under repair went on a trial run down the park, and before long, everyone who could find room to climb on board, carrying flags and banging tins, and others just screaming. There were 4 on the seat, 2 on each wing, and others on the steps. We raced round the block, shouting the good news to everyone. L'armistice est fini, la guerre finie. The war is finished. But not quite, because this lady, Enid Marion Ranson, you'll see age 25 on her card, 25 in 1918. In December 1918, on the back of the card, it's got this member died on active service 9th of December 1918. We can't find anything about her. Can't find where she's buried. She's not on a Commonwealth war graves. So that's a piece of research that's ongoing, that she clearly saw the end of the war and then died. My guess would be, ladies and gentlemen, would probably be the Spanish flu, wouldn't it? I guess could be an accident, but soon I would guess it's probably. But she's not. That's another story of those who are not commemorated by the Commonwealth war graves, but who died on active service. Where is she buried? Was she brought home? We can't find where she's buried in France. So anyway, thank you. Le fini.
Oh, it was very interesting. Thank you. Anybody got any questions?
Stunned.
Stunned.
Do come and have a look at some of the collection.
Question. Where do you tend to go to find your medals?
Everywhere. This is just a very small piece. Military fairs, auctions, friends, referrals. We're part of the Order of Medals Research Society and Birmingham Medal Society, or anywhere. Medals to ladies and volunteer men who volunteered and served with the French Army, British volunteers who served with the French Army, who lost their lives as well. Hard to find to ladies, VADs. You see a lot of medals for VADs, but until you actually go to the register, you don't know what. And to find a driver is very, very rare. Very rare. There's a group here for a nurse who got the 1914-15 star. But yeah, come and have a look. They are rare. They're hard to find.
Contact with their family.
To some of the groups, yes. Some of the research, yes. I won't keep you, but one of the aspects of the volunteers is more often than not, and we found that they aren't registered, they're not recorded by the Commonwealth War. And I bought a group of medals a long time ago to, I had a phone call one night, 10 o'clock at night. I'd had a few whiskies. The phone went and said, "Did you buy the medals?" And I said, "What medals?" He said, "The medals." I said, I didn't know who it was at first. And anyway, it was a chap who sadly passed away since, bought the medals, and he clearly identified that in 1921, his wife was told, "I'm sorry, haven't been in touch with you. Your husband obviously killed in action in 1918." But he wasn't commemorated. The Commonwealth War graves, he wasn't on the Commonwealth War Graves website. He hadn't got a grave. He hadn't been seen. They thought he was a prisoner of war. So we did 7 years, I think, of research, and submitted the claim to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and it took them ages and ages and ages, and they eventually came back and agreed. And now he's commemorated on the Soissons Memorial in France. And I think there are many others, not so many women, but volunteer men who died but have been completely forgotten.